I'm Linda McNamee, and as you saw from the introduction, we're going to find out all about Red Devil sports momentarily. But as always, I have a few housekeeping rules that I need to take care of. First of all, you are more than welcome to give us a call tonight at 781 270 9199, or you can always email me any day, anytime, day or night, at talk@bcattv.org. I want to thank my crew for this evening. A little sparse crew, we're still kind of recovering from the pandemic. But Chris Flaherty is here. He's a staff member at BCAT, and he makes us volunteers look good or keeps us out of trouble. I'm not sure which, maybe a little bit of both. But thank you, Chris. And I want to thank my husband, Paul, for staying home for Daddy Date Night. And hopefully all is well in Middle Earth, because we are reading Lord of the Rings at home. So now I would like to introduce you to my wonderful guest. We have Shaun Hart, who's the Director of Athletics at Burlington High School. And we're going to talk about what's going on with the whole sports thing. So welcome, Shaun. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I love this virtual thing. Works out pretty well.
I know. I'll be ready to get back to in person as soon as we can, though. I'll tell you that.
I think everybody's experiencing a little bit of COVID fatigue or whatever, pandemic fatigue or whatever. So anyway, no, I'm still thankful that you gave up your Wednesday evening. Apparently we are between seasons right now.
We started our fall 2 season on Monday. So we ended the winter on Saturday with a tremendous girls basketball championship, and then we took Sunday off, and then we started on Monday.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's back up a little bit before we start talking about the sports program in Burlington. Let's find out a little bit more about you. Can you tell us, where you grew up and how you ended up coming to be the director of BHS Sports?
Well, I grew up in Lawrence, Mass. So I'm a Lawrence boy, and I went to Central Catholic High School there, and then did my first degree at Salem State. And then I did my first master's at Cambridge in educational leadership, and I did my second master's at Northeastern in sports leadership.
Okay, I was waiting for the sports thing to get in there.
Well, when I came out of my first round of college, if you will, I got a teaching job right away in Westford at Westford Academy.
What were you teaching?
What's that?
What were you teaching?
I was a phys ed guy.
Okay.
Right. So there was a piece of it there. And I did my student teaching and started in Winchester, believe it or not. And that's where I picked up coaching. And I was a football and baseball and hockey and lacrosse guy throughout the years, but football's my big background. I've been doing that for about 24 years or so. And again, at Westford, was there for 10 years. And then I took the AD job down in Revere and coached the football team at Phillips Academy in Andover for 10 years. So we've been around a little bit.
Now, growing up, did you play all these sports, or did you just develop the sideline, the coaching and?
No, did a little bit of both. Was a football, hockey, baseball guy growing up, and in Lawrence, it was a full-time, keep you out of trouble, kind of do your thing. And, again, I think that's what our parents did. We didn't get babysitters. We got the next Little League game or the next hockey game or the next Popwana game. So I think it was the best of both worlds.
Go hang out at the playground and, pick up, do a pickup basketball game or something.
They always knew where we were.
So how long were you in Burlington, or have you been in Burlington?
This is my 6th year.
Okay.
6 years. I started in 2015.
Excellent. Well, we are very happy to have you here.
Thanks.
So do you have a management team here at the high school, or are you just a one-man show?
No, the best part about, being at the high school is, we have a tremendously supportive administrative staff. I think it starts with those guys. I mean, Dr. Conti, Patrick Larkin, and those guys. They're super supportive of what we do in athletics. And again, just being in the schools, I mean, anybody who's ever met them know they're like the sweetest, easiest going people. And again, they just want to see the best ever for kids. And I think that's when you have that kind of leadership, it makes my job super easy. Mark Sullivan, Joe Adebato, Rick Sheehan in the high school with me every single day. Those guys make it easy because, again, all athletes, all guys that went through it, all people who have been part of it. So they, again, when, everybody says, oh, you're adults, you don't get it. But also, every one of them some of them even went through this league. So they understand what those things are about.
Okay.
And again, we have our own staff in the athletic department. We have some great people there. Nicole Doherty, who's my administrative assistant. I have Kevin McDonough and Kyle Blanchette, who are both my equipment guys and athletic guys. And then this year through COVID, we had, our medical staff with Linda Bannon and Kirsten Molino, giving up every weekend for us to make sure our kids are taken care of. And then, now I even consider the BCAT guys, with our streaming services and all the things that they did for us. I mean, they're part of what we did. And to be honest, I'm so thankful that they would, they gave up a lot to make us look pretty good.
Well, they're there to support you. It's a team. There is no I in team, unless you're some individuals that I know, but we're going to skip that part. So do you still do sports? No, wait, of course you do sports, but do you still do coaching, or are you more administrative, making sure all the pieces are in its place?
I want to tell everybody that I just do the managerial part, but the best part about being athletic director is you get to play Monday morning quarterback with every coach that works with you. You want to let them know what you thought, how you thought it, whether you liked it or you didn't like it. And as much as they want to tell you they don't care, they will listen.
Excellent. Nice to have some people, people that will pay attention to what you're saying.
Or at least pretend that they
Or at least pretend to. Exactly. Okay. Now, right when we first started the show, you were talking about how we had fall 1 season and then winter and now fall 2. Now, back when I was in elementary school, fall usually followed winter, followed spring. And here you got winter sandwiched between 2 falls. So let's look at a normal year first. So what does the normal year of BHS sports look like?
So we would start usually roughly mid-August with our fall slate of games, and practices, if you will. That would usually take us through Thanksgiving morning, where we would end that season if we weren't in some type of football playoff, if you would. That would end us for the fall season. Then the Monday after Thanksgiving, we would start with our winter season, and that would take us all the way through March 15th.
Okay.
Then we'd have about a week or so off, and then we would start our spring offerings. And again, with this particular year versus a regular year versus the COVID year, the rationale behind the seasons were just not knowing what was going to happen. They wanted to not cancel things, but if they could maneuver things to try and give kids opportunities, that was their biggest hope. And in a normal year, we would have never worried about it. But in this particular year, I guess that we're in it now. I think people are excited, and it's gone very positively. So I can't, again, if it was very negative, I think people would be like, oh, this is not, why did we do it? But again,
you wouldn't be here if it was a negative experience,
No, right. But again, I think, that there's some growth in that, in failing a bit, you know what I mean? So again, I think that no matter how big a stumbling block COVID has been, and it's really put in every phase of life, it does not athletics, but in every phase of life, we've had to deal with some things. But I think when you look back on it, I think that there's going to be some positives that we can take out of it, even if it's just every day, how we've done things and the stress of life in a different way. If we can get something that comes out of it that's going to be positive, we're going to come out better on the other side.
Right. And it's also kind of stretching our imaginations at the same time, because we are living in a global pandemic, and most people that are around today have never lived through a pandemic before. And even if they have, I mean, it was 100 years ago, our resources are much different.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine growing up, when I grew up, what would happen if I had to stay home, because we didn't have the internet, we didn't have email, we didn't have video conferencing. Zoom was a TV show on PBS, so it's like, how do we reinvent ourselves? So how did you go about figuring out which sports could be played, which sports shouldn't be played, and how is fall 1 different than fall 2 seasons?
Yeah, so again, I think for us the best part was, and I think that we're very fortunate in Burlington. We have a great veteran staff. So I think that I give them all the credit in the world, because if you had a ton of brand new, I don't know what I'm doing coaches, it would have been a much bigger hill to climb.
Okay.
But because we have such a veteran staff, they know that with a good day can come a bad day, and we just have to roll through the punches, and we'll kind of move it along, if you will. And I think that they deserve most of the credit. They've been phenomenal. And when you asked them to jump, they were like, how high? Because we want to play and we want to give these kids an opportunity. So they really deserve most of the credit here. I mean, I think that what we learned, and I think that, as in anything we do, I think the biggest piece was we made it very clear, or I know I did, that I didn't know everything.
Okay.
I think that's the biggest piece. I think that when people came out and said, oh, this is what happens, and this is what you're doing, and this is how you have to do it.
Yeah.
Like, we sat back and said, guys, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen.
Okay.
And I need you to know that everything I tell you right now could change tomorrow. And again, I think that was a good mantra to have, because in this thing that what we knew on day 1 was not true 3 weeks later.
Exactly.
Or there was a version of it.
Right.
So
Okay.
So again, with our guys in the fall, I mean, I think that we handled it the best way we could. We took it with baby steps. We probably could have done more, but you know what? Not having known, doing what we did, doing it at a successful level where parents and our student athletes and our administration and our community felt safe, that's a home run.
Okay.
And we had so little issue that if I had to do it all over again, even knowing what I know now, I could say I could have done more, but I don't know that I would have changed it, because I don't know if I would be here in this spot with getting, football and everything else underway if we did it a different way back then.
Okay. So speaking of fall sports, let's just go through the whole year here. And I may or may not refer to my notes. I don't know, because this is just a fun conversation. So normally in the fall, we have football, soccer, lacrosse,
spring.
Oh, okay.
So
field
football,
hockey. Okay.
Football, cheerleading.
Cheerleading's year round, though, isn't it?
Cheerleading in Burlington right now is a fall sport.
Okay, so cheerleading, football.
Right, and then we would have boys and girls soccer.
Soccer. Okay.
Boys and girls cross country.
Okay.
Volleyball, golf, and field hockey.
Volleyball's not a winter sport because it's played inside.
Correct.
Oh, okay. See, a lot of these sports weren't available where I went to school, so that's why I'm just like trying to figure out. Okay. So, with all of those sports, it seems like you divided the season in 2. So we have fall 1 and fall 2. So fall 1 had boys and girls soccer.
Yep.
Where was cheerleading?
Cheerleading got pushed to fall 2.
Fall 2, okay.
Yep.
And we had mentioned football is fall 2.
So we had boys and girls cross country.
Cross country still happened.
Boys and girls soccer.
Soccer, okay.
Field hockey, golf.
Oh, okay. Where do you guys play golf?
We play at Billerica Country Club.
Oh, okay. I was wondering what your home field is. It still considered like a home field?
Home course. Yep.
Course. Okay. I got to learn all this terminology.
And we had options. So again, the with the MIAA gave us options. We could have played volleyball in the fall. It was an option. So in this particular year, the MIAA said that if there was a sport that you didn't play or you played less than half your games, you could push it to another season if there were opponents that you were going to play from your league.
Okay.
So we decided that, again, going back to what we didn't know, at the fall, in August, in September or October, when we actually started,
Okay.
the fear with the whole COVID thing was that again, we weren't coming inside. We didn't have we weren't full blast in anything inside. So it was better to move it till we had better idea of what was going on than to try and force something inside that we weren't ready for.
Got it.
So that was our background thought of that.
Okay. Now, how many games in a typical season of any one of those sports?
So they can range anywhere from 14 to 20.
Okay.
In a regular season.
Okay. And that's just a regular season that does not count like any tournament, championship tournaments.
Correct.
Okay. So what will be or what is fall 2? It sounds like volleyball.
Yep.
We mentioned football, cheerleading.
Volleyball, football, cheerleading, indoor boys and girls track.
Oh, okay. And do all of these sports currently require, because of COVID, require the athletes to wear masks all the time?
Every sport that we've played this year, we have. So again, being part of the Middlesex League in all the sports that we are part of, as athletic directors and superintendents, we had meetings and we've met several times. As an athletic director group, the 12 of us meet every Tuesday from March when COVID started. We've met every Tuesday to have the same conversations. And what we've done is we've taken the state mandates and we've made them almost a little stricter in the league because, we feel that, the science says a mask is better than a gaiter. So what we've done is we've made masks mandatory on all our staff, all of our athletes, again, even our parents that came to watch games, they couldn't watch the game wearing a gaiter. They had to put a mask on, which we would provide to them if they showed up without it. And again, it felt it was important that if we could do some of the minimum things to make it safer for our kids, then we were making a move in the right direction.
Now, with parents or with athletes or anything, did you get any pushback? Because there are always the anti-maskers in our world. So how did that play out, no pun intended, in the sports scene?
No, honestly, I think that there were probably people out there who, and again, we dealt with it in every season. You'd have coaches that would show up and have a gaiter on because they weren't thinking about it, or some people didn't know the difference between a gaiter and a mask for time. You know what I mean? So ultimately, again, we made it very clear to our staff that we had eyes on those things at all times.
Okay.
If somebody wanted to not do it, we would just politely walk over and reference it and say, hey, to be at a game, it's a league policy that you have to wear a mask. If somebody didn't want to wear a mask, which by the way never happened in Burlington, not at all. But again, if somebody didn't want to do it, then I can't even tell you how I would have reacted to it because it didn't happen to me. So, I probably would have just said, hey, listen, I said it's a league rule, and if you want to stay on our property and be part of what's going on, you have to do it. And if you want to take your mask off or in your car, or you want to wear your gaiter tomorrow, just do me a favor and just try and make it the way it has to be.
Yeah. I don't make the rules. I'm just trying to enforce them, kind of thing.
Sometimes I make them, but
they don't have to know that. Oh, wait, did I say that out loud? Okay, so we kind of covered fall. Now, because you're doing the season in chunks, is it still the same length of season? Is it still the same number of games that are compressed into a smaller time frame? How has the season been experienced?
So everything's been shorter.
Okay.
I mean, so again, in the beginning of the school year when we started, we didn't know if we were going to get off the ground with sports. We didn't even know if we were going back to school. I mean, you
That's
remember
true.
even back in
Yeah.
August and September, nobody even had. We were doing a lot of maneuvering, if you will.
Right.
So we started sports later. So when we combined the seasons and made four, we had to make four almost equals. So this fall two season is actually the shortest of them all.
Okay.
Because they had to find that right timing, and they wanted to make sure that spring would get off the way that way, or give them the most opportunity, if you would, because again, we're going to be outside. And last year, all of the kids who played, or all the athletes that played spring sports, because they lost them, they wanted to be able to say, let's try and get them as much as we can, because
Okay.
they're the ones that actually lost the most. So right
it.
now, currently in the fall and in the winter, we played 10 varsity JV freshman level games. We played them all on Saturdays, or on holidays in the fall.
Okay.
And then in the winter, we played them mostly, I'm going to say 80% of them were played on Saturdays. And to be able to have a tournament, which we did not do in the fall, but we asked to have that next step forward in the winter. So superintendents and administration agreed that if everything was healthy and everything was going in the right direction, and we weren't having a lot of issues with our teams in the league, that they would allow us to do that. They did do that. We did run successful tournaments here in the winter.
Excellent. Okay.
which was great. And again, because of that, so we shortened the seasons, and we threw in some Tuesday, evenings, if you would, just to get the number of games in.
Well, you also
And
had
again,
a couple of vacations too. You had like the Christmas break or the New Year break, and then you also had February vacation.
Well, it was part of it, believe it or not. Like, it's funny because we actually had a lot of conversation about that, because a lot of people wanted us to not play, during vacation, and not play the week after vacation, because everybody was about the 14 days of, were people traveling, were people not traveling.
Okay.
But our conversation, which I thought was really important to have with people, was that, sports is one of those things that keeps a community home. You know what I mean? So if you knew that your son or daughter was playing 3 games or 2 games during vacation week and had 2 practices, you weren't traveling.
Exactly. And you shouldn't be traveling anyway, according to the experts.
But even during the holidays, people were told not to travel, and people did or they didn't. Again, I'm not here to judge, but ultimately the bottom line is that if you knew you had 4 practices for Burlington High School,
right,
parents
stay home. Your schedule goes around your kids' extracurriculars.
And we kind of tried to throw that out there. And I think the superintendents were great when they thought of it, because they said, I don't think they said, like, that is a true reason why people would stay. And if that kept 300 people or student athletes from traveling, it was worth a shot.
Exactly.
And honestly, we didn't have kids that missed. Like, that was the best part. So we knew it worked.
Yeah, you didn't have to worry about kids going to Disney World. Well, in most cases. Okay, winter sports. You did hockey and basketball and gymnastics?
Yes.
Am I missing?
And something else. Yes, I can't remember what it was now.
No, I'm serious. What?
No, I'm being serious too.
Oh!
We did boys and girls basketball.
Okay.
We did boys and girls hockey. We did boys and girls gymnastics.
Okay. Are those the normal winter sports?
All our winter sports.
Okay. And you just finished that season.
Correct.
How'd that go? I mean, trying to get hockey players, they already have so much equipment. They actually, how did they fit in a mask with everything else?
It's, it's funny. In football and in hockey, it's almost probably easier, because they can attach the masks to their cages. And then their cages sit over their faces. So you're not wearing it unless you wanted to on your face.
Okay.
So you actually had, sometimes it might have been easier. It was funny, because in the original conversations when we talked about hockey and talked about basketball, they were exactly opposite in how we had to handle them. I didn't have any issue with hockey players playing the game of hockey, because it's such a fast game that you're so minimally near another human being for any length of time because of the speed of the game.
Okay.
So the issue with hockey was the fact that you only have 20 feet on a bench where everybody sits on top of each other.
Okay.
So the issues for hockey were all about the bench area for me. And then in basketball, it was exactly opposite, because in basketball, our gym is big enough where we could socially distance. In fact, I thought it was a better setup during COVID than it was in a regular season.
Because you didn't let any of the parents show up or any of the schools, because you usually
different-
let all the
that's a
students in.
But again, on the side of the benches only, we sit in a regular season, you would sit every single athlete directly next to each other, so they literally sat in each other's laps.
Right. Okay.
In the COVID setup, with spacing everybody out, it actually gave you a chance to sit down, take a breath, have your bag next to you if you needed something. I mean,
Yeah.
the setup
Okay.
was just better, and all of the contact in basketball takes place on the floor.
Right.
So the dynamics of the games are so different, but it was amazing how much you had to take, the game of basketball being, people next to each other all the time. And then hockey, it was the togetherness of being on the bench that we had to try and combat. So little different in both.
Okay. So the winter season is done. We're now in a fall 2. When does spring start, and what are our spring sports?
So fall 2 ends on the April 25th, and then the 26th will start spring.
So that's. Oh wait, I have one more question about fall 2. You got basketball. Not basketball. You got football. There's
Yes.
still a whole bunch of snow on the ground. Where are the football players going to play?
On the freshly snow-plowed fields that are totally bare with a 50-degree day today.
Cool. Okay. But
Drive over to the high school and check it out. You'll love it.
Okay.
It's this green postage stamp in the middle of this white island.
wow. Cool. Yeah, I wish that would happen in my front lawn. Okay, because I was just, wondering about that. Okay, I know when it's freshly fallen snow, you see the Patriots play in, snowy weather all the time. But in springtime, it starts to melt and then refreezes, and then it's just a block of ice, and that's just
Right.
not cool for playing sports.
Right.
No
So
pun
we
intended.
No, but we knew again, kind of going into it, we kind of knew that the first couple of
Okay.
days in football were going to be a bunch of, conditioning days and getting everybody ready and putting helmets on and getting some shoulder pads on and getting everybody acclimated. So it was the way that the football worked out this year is that we had, they ran practice in the evening so that they could use both gyms, so that they could have the team split into
Spread out.
both
Oh,
gyms,
okay.
be totally spread out. And they did a lot of the basic stuff that they need to do in the first couple days just to be ready.
Okay.
So the good news is that gave the crews, thanks to Bob Kuna, who really went out to bat for us and got some crews in there to take care of business for us, and a couple of machines over there today, a couple of hours of work, and the entire field and some of the track has already been cleared, and then they're going to clear all of Marshall Simons tomorrow.
Wow. Got
Ready
their
to
work
go.
cut out for them. That is impressive. Okay, so
Just
moving
nice.
on to spring sports that begin the end of April, early May. Baseball, lacrosse,
Baseball, softball,
softball. Okay, baseball, softball.
boys and girls lacrosse.
And you corrected me because I thought lacrosse was a fall sport, and it is a spring sport. We never had lacrosse when I was growing. Well, we didn't play lacrosse in our town. Track,
Outdoor, boys and
Outdoor.
girls outdoor track.
track and field. Okay.
And then we have what else do we have? What am I missing? I'm missing. Boys and girls tennis.
Oh, forgot about tennis. Don't
And
tell my
then
best friend.
this year we always so girls. Oh, by the way, girls swimming fall 2. We forgot about them.
Oh, okay.
So girls swimming swims in the fall normally,
Okay.
and they now are swimming in the fall 2 because pools weren't available to us until now.
Oh, okay.
And so our girls swim team is swimming in fall 2, and our boys swim team swims in the winter. So we've moved them to the spring. We just bumped them one season
Okay.
because again, pool availability. We were afraid that swimming we were afraid that swimming wasn't going to happen for us because we always swam at Shawsheen Tech.
Okay.
And because Shawsheen Tech is a school, and most schools are closing their facilities to outside vendors, which
Okay.
Burlington, we're not doing a lot of stuff inside our school either. They called us and told us that they weren't going to open until probably next fall.
Wow.
So
Okay.
we did a lot of work we went to several different facilities, and we finally, North Suburban YMCA was amazing, and brought us in and literally said, if we could work our practices around, um, their hours of their highest peak hours versus their lowest peak
Okay.
hours. So what they ended up doing for us is literally they closed their building at like 6 o'clock.
Wow.
So they're going to allow us to go in when the building's closed,
Okay.
so that we don't have to worry about them and they don't have to worry about us. And they're going to let us swim for, an hour and a half, 4 days a week. And then they're going to
Okay.
open the building on Saturday to us. They
Wow.
close it like 1. They're going to open the building at 2 o'clock. The place is going to be empty. And they're going to give us the whole facility for the kids to go in and participate, which is
That's
amazing.
amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
So you said girls are going to be fall two, and
Mhm.
boys swimming was winter.
Correct. Now
Is
they'll go
that
to spring.
when it? Okay. So boys are going to spring. When is
Correct.
normal swim season?
Would Girls would be fall,
Okay.
regular fall. Boys would be regular
So it
winter.
always is separate.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure, like, boys and girls soccer together and
Yep.
okay.
Yep. No, some leagues do boys and
Okay.
girls swim together. And they usually, if they do it together, it's usually done in the winter. But since we separate them,
Okay.
we do one in the fall, one in the winter.
Got it. Okay. Ours were always together. Um, so spring, we got those all set up. Now, can we like back up a little bit and just pretend that COVID's not around? And let's
Not sure we
talk.
can do that.
I wish it were true. I realize that. But in order to participate in sports in general,
Mhm.
do the athletes have to maintain like a GPA, or, you know, are there requirements for them in order to participate? And what are those requirements?
Yeah, a student athlete at Burlington High School needs to be carrying 20 credits in good standing per season.
Okay.
So, and if you're not carrying 20 credits in good standing, you'd be on our ineligibility list, which would make you ineligible until you became eligible.
Okay.
And so, in some sports, if you become eligible during the season and it's a no cut sport and we can get you out for the proper number of practices before your first competition, then we've
Okay.
done that. But if you're in a highly contested cut sport and you miss the eligibility window, you're waiting till next year.
Wow. That's pretty intense. I mean,
Well,
it needs
again,
to be, but
school's about school. It's not about
is it
sports.
is it still like quarterly grades or trimester, or
No,
because
they still have their quarterly grades.
okay,
And
no, I'm
again,
just
like,
wondering, like, eligibility, when does it fall? Is it always, it's still when
so if you
report
were
cards come out?
ineligible, if you were ineligible in the fall, you
Okay.
wouldn't become eligible till almost Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So you'd be good for the winter sports, and then you would become ineligible for spring if you missed the next window for the start of it anyway.
Okay. So roughly how many athletes does the Burlington High School sports cover? I mean, are there a lot of kids that participate in each season, or they're just like, I just play football and nothing else?
We are a small enough school where we do have some individualized athletes, but I would say that probably maybe 70% of our kids play multiple sports. And again, it depends on a COVID year versus a regular year. Obviously, our COVID teams are smaller, and for a couple of reasons.
Okay.
The state imposed roster limits on a lot of because they wanted to ensure social distancing. They wanted to ensure that there wasn't overloads on football and other practice facilities.
Okay.
So they imposed rosters on us so that it was more easy for us to manage because of the roster sizes. In some cases, like basketball, for instance, In a normal year, Burlington High School boys and girls basketball team would hold anywhere from 10 to 12 kids. This year, our coaches held more kids because if somebody got sick or if something happened or if somebody had to miss something, they
Okay.
wanted to make sure they had enough kids to be able to play or athletes to be able to play and do those things. So
Okay.
in some cases our rosters were smaller because they needed to be. In some cases they were a little bigger. But on the norm, again, depending on the season, we could have anywhere from 200 plus to 300 plus kids play in a season.
Wow. Okay. Now back to the, COVID and limited rosters. How did you make that decision if did, did, if you had more kids that wanted to play than you were able to put on your roster? I mean, were there tryouts, or how did you make those decisions? How do
So
you
we
tell
do
a
have
kid you can't play?
So again, we do have tryouts, and again, those
Okay.
are well publicized. I mean, we have some sports that we have never cut certain a student athlete from a sport, and then we have some that are highly competitive. Like, for instance, our boys and girls basketball teams are competitive teams. Kids try out for those spots, and
Okay.
sometimes you have to make a tough decision, but ultimately, because we have a junior varsity team and because we have freshman teams, it gives us the ability to hold, anywhere from 36 to 50 kids on those
Okay.
teams. So it's a good number of kids. And we have those feeder programs that allow those kids to get the opportunities to play as they move up, if you will. And then we have a team like our cross country team those are non-cut teams. Our boys and girls teams are non-cut teams. So they could have anywhere from 20 to 40 student athletes running on them at a time. And if they were 50 or 60, we would just continue to grow those teams and let them play. Our boys indoor and outdoor track teams, in a COVID year, those are smaller teams because
Okay.
it's a different sport right now with some virtual, sides to it. But, last year, our indoor track team had 100 plus boys on it and 80 girls.
Wow. That's
So,
pretty
again,
impressive.
it depends on what the year is and what our fancy is, if you will.
Now, does Burlington still have for track? Again, I'm going back, ancient history when I was on the track team. We had track and field combined.
Mhm.
So, is the field part still part of the spring sports, or do you also do it in winter
It's in
track?
both.
Or
No,
oh, it
it's
is.
in both. Indoor and
Okay.
outdoor both have a field component.
Okay.
It's just, again, it's still a field component. In the spring track, you'll have pole vault where you don't have it in the indoor season. And
Okay.
right now, our indoor season will be held outdoor, and it's under snow right now, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
But essentially, no, it's still an opportunity there, and it's still there. But again, depending on what season you're in, really kind of dictates your level of enthusiasm, if you would, in what's going on.
Okay. Let's talk about safety. I know we're jumping all over the place.
Fine.
We touched upon safety regulations during COVID with the uh, masking and socially distancing. But what about like testing and if somebody's close contact and considered close contact? And then so after we talk about that, I want to go into a normal year where we talk about, repetitive strain injuries and how to not pressure kids in their high school career so that they can have a college career or post college career, if that makes sense.
No, it does, and I
Okay.
think so. In the COVID world, the safety precautions were abundant, to say the least. You know what I mean? But again, I think I made it very clear, and again, very lucky that we have a veteran staff. I can't tell you how important that is because our staff has such a level of credibility with our community and a level of credibility with our kids that when our coaches took it seriously and made it an impetus on everybody, I don't think our kids thought it was even a choice.
Okay.
I think that was a big to do. And again, the leadership that our coaches showed throughout this whole piece was, again, it's you can't say enough about it. You really can't. And again, like I said, if coaches went into it lackadaisical and said, you know what, I'm not a mask wearer, I'm not wearing
Yeah.
my mask, then what kid would? What
Exactly.
student athlete would? You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that's important. You know what I mean? Because again, I can talk about how important it is, but when
Okay.
you see me not doing it, you know what I mean? Our
Right.
kids are, and again, and as much as we want to tell it, hey, put your mask on, when I'm telling them to put a mask on, when I'm not wearing one,
Yeah. It's like,
you know
no,
what I mean? Like they're
no.
looking at me like, hey, Mr. Hart, like seriously, what gives? You know what I mean? So again, I think that was important. And in having that conversation
Okay.
at the beginning with coaches, I think I made that very clear that, and I told them, I said, and know as politically as incorrect as this is going to sound, I said, I don't really care what your politics are. Your
Wear the
job is
mask.
going to tell you, your job is telling you that you're going
Yeah.
to do exactly what we tell you to do.
Okay.
And if you don't want to do that, then take the year off. This is
Exactly.
not the year for you to coach if you don't think that these are, I don't, because again,
Right.
I am totally fine with your own thoughts when you're at home and when you're doing your thing.
Okay.
But when you're working for us and you're working with our kids, you have to, the rule is the rule, and you have to be able to say yes to it. And if you're going to say, I'm wearing it and I hate this and this is ridiculous and we shouldn't be doing this, that's improper for what we want our kids to be displaying. And I thought that was important. And our coaches, again, they rose up to the challenge.
You're being a role model, so.
They have to be, and I think that they are, and I think that our kids really appreciate, our coaching staff at every level. And again, going back to your other point that you were making, in a regular year, we have an amazing sports medical staff here. Linda Bannon's amazing. Like I said, Kirsten Molino, Chris Toda, guys who have worked for us. And again, even the people who jump in to help us out, like Matt Jackling, who's our boys soccer coach, who's also an athletic trainer on the side, always willing to lend a hand when during COVID, when we had somebody running late and a team that was leaving and a team coming in, we have people that jumped in to help out because that's what they did to help us get off the ground. And I really appreciate all those guys for doing that. But essentially I said, like, again, our because we have 3 sport athletes, our coaches try very, very hard not to step on each other's toes. As much as you want somebody to be, I want, our football, our quarterback to be our number 1 quarterback. So we want him to be the, quarterback in fall and quarterback in winter leagues and quarterback in spring leagues. They also know that our quarterback might be our best lacrosse player. You know what I mean? Or our quarterback might be our best sprinter in the winter. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? Like, you have to high demand while they're in season and checking in demand when they're in other seasons.
Okay, because I'm just, so your staff will help the kids make sure that they don't overextend themselves in any one particular sport.
Yeah, I think again, I think that they have to, and again, on the backside of that, we do have the kids that say, you know what, I'm a basketball player.
Okay.
And that's what I want to be when I grow up. You know what I mean? So again, we have some of those kids. And again, we've had kids that have had a lot of success in one sport, but view themselves as an athlete in a different one. And coaches have had to let that kid leave and go be what they think they want to be.
Okay.
And we all know that as much as we think we know everything, people will look back and say, well, I know, but people will look back and say, you know what, maybe I should have played both because I would have been great if I did. You know what I mean? But they chose not to at the time. So respect what they want to do.
Okay, let's talk about parents.
Can we go to the next segment, please?
Okay. How about the fans? Do you want to talk about parents or fans?
No,
because
the parents are.
Again, this year has been totally different. Where I know a lot of parents are the kids' biggest fans, and they want to see their kids succeed, but they're not allowed to go to the games, and they're probably not allowed to sit in the practices. And again, the athletic boosters are pretty much parent driven. So how much does the sports area, not the entire department, the entire program, how much do you rely on the parents, and how has that changed during the COVID year?
Well, again, so in a regular year, we would meet kind of regularly with our boosters, or I would meet with the boosters because, keep them in the loop of what's going on. And they always, we've been very lucky. We've had some amazing parents run our booster organization, and be super supportive of what we do here in athletics. And again, it is for their kids, but they're also doing a lot for even kids that aren't their kids. We have people who have come back to help out even though they don't have kids in the system and things like that. So it's an amazing organization, and they do a lot of work for us. And again, in a year like this, it's just been different. The involvement factor is different. And again, I feel for parents. I mean, I listen. Nobody wants to play in an empty stadium. Nobody wants to play in an empty basketball gym. And but again, we have these discussions, and nobody is telling you that it's right, wrong, or indifferent. There was a big discussion in the conversation is, when we're outside, I think people feel safer. They feel better. The athletes feel safer. They feel better. As a group of people, and I know this sounds horrible when I say it, but my focus is letting these kids have an opportunity.
Okay.
And that was really, in a lot of this, my sole focus was about doing everything I could to ensure the safety of my student athlete, my coaching staff, and my athletic staff. And again, I know that people were disappointed and they were angry at times, and they were aggravated that they couldn't go watch there. And I really felt for the senior parents. I really do, because
Yeah.
you know what?
Okay.
If I'm a sophomore parent, I want to go watch my kid play, but I know I'm going to have an opportunity to see that again.
Right.
As a senior parent, and again, the good news was in the fall that we had fans at the games in the fall, so they did get to watch those games.
Oh,
The
okay.
indoor opportunities were a little different, because I think we were so concerned about being in a gym, and the rules at the beginning when you were in the gyms were,
Okay.
if one person tested positive, the entire gym was now close contact. And even if I
Oh,
was
okay.
across the gym, if one of the
It's
kids
like
on
the
the other team
recirculated
had,
air type thing,
right,
or okay.
and I was going to have to not work for 14 days
Oh,
because I was a close
no.
contact. And again,
Okay.
knowing that all of these things and what was true and what wasn't true and all these different things, again,
Okay.
there were a lot of, as athletic directors across the state, there were very few leagues, believe it or not, that actually had winter spectators indoors. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Most of the leagues actually had no spectators. So it was kind of like it was a microcosm of what we were going through, and everybody said it was only us, or thought it was only us, but it was actually quite a bit of people. And again, I'm not going to say we did it right or we did it wrong. I just think that what we tried to do is we really tried to put the student athletes opportunity to have success was
Okay.
our number one goal, and we tried to mitigate every factor that could take something away from them, even though we knew we were taking something away from them.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking, as far as parental involvement, you hear stories, not in Burlington, but you hear stories about like the dad at the Little League game yelling at the coach. I mean, do you ever have um, that experience where the parents are trying to do your job for you, and how do you navigate around those waters where my kid's the best athlete, you got to put him on the first string, or is that very prevalent in high school level sports, or is that more
It,
just like Little League?
no, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And I know, and again, and it has its negatives and it has its positives. I think that, you know, athletics and sports derives a passion from people. I mean, people care a lot about it. You know what I mean? Even at the smallest levels. I think that's a big part of it. And I think that, again, you have so much invested in your son and daughter by the time sometimes you get to the high school level that you feel that whether you right, wrong, or indifferent, you
Right.
feel that you know a ton. And again, we have a veteran staff of coaches, and we have a philosophy that, again, as you move up in level, when you're on a freshman level team,
Mm,
every single kid on that team should have the same opportunities to shine. That's
okay.
the way it should be. And again, at the junior varsity level, and again, this is my own thoughts on this, is that, at the junior varsity level, you're starting to get into to you're a little older, and then the cream starts to rise a little bit, and then some are not as creamy, if you will. So you have opportunities. So you still should be involved in every game, but some is going to be a little bit more, and some is
Okay.
going to be a little less.
Okay.
And then at the varsity level is a competitive level where our varsity coaches are out there to try and win games and win the league and win state championships if at all possible. And there is a mix that goes in with, if you're going to have a number of student athletes on a team, they should be able to have an opportunity in games, but that level of opportunity is much shorter at the varsity level. And I think that our coaches are great at sitting down with kids and letting them know that, listen, there are 12 kids on this team, and you might be number 10, number 11, or number 12. So this is where you are on this team.
Okay.
But I want you on this team because you bring something to the table. And I think that there are some students that think that that's offensive that they would say that. And I think that some of those kids walk away from that sport at that chance.
Okay.
But I would say that 99% of them, when they hear that I'm being valued, even if it's at a different level, that they respect the conversation. And I will say that it's funny, because going back to the parent piece, I think sometimes it's way harder for the parent to hear that conversation happened. But that student athlete or that kid is so happy that the truth was there. And it's almost like, I appreciate that I'm being valued.
Right.
Even though it might not be what, I'm not Tom Brady here, but I'm being valued, and they appreciate that so much. And I think our coaches have gotten a lot out of those kids. Like there are so many of those kids that I can tell you about that I've been here, just being in Burlington and even over my career, that those are the kids that come back and say how much it meant to me to not be left off that team. You know what I mean? That
that's
you
gotta be a great
me.
feeling, as a teacher, as a role model, to have somebody come back and say, hey, look, you were right.
Huge. And again, but you want to know something, but it's hard for that parent to hear that at the time, at the moment, at the heat of the battle, if you will. My kid would have done that better. But you want to know something? Like, I think when you look back on some of those things, some of the greatest stories we tell are about the kid, that 12th kid or that 25th kid who had this one moment. I can remember we had a championship boys basketball game last year, where our 12 kid comes off the bench, and our entire section there were 800 people in the gym screaming his name when he scored a basket. And if you don't think a moment like that shines for a kid, you're crazy. And that kid didn't remember that he didn't play against a Wakefield 6 weeks ago.
Right.
That kid remembers that on that film, when 800 people are screaming like absolute idiots that kid scored a basket.
Exactly.
You can't replace that.
Yeah, the winning
you can't replace
goal
it.
Or something. Okay.
A moment to shine is what people want.
Okay, total tangent. We forgot to talk about wrestling.
Wrestling's a winter.
Okay. Can you still? That is like really close contact.
A little bit.
Last time I checked wrestling. So how has that changed during COVID?
So wrestling is a winter sport that got moved to the spring.
Okay.
And I think that, again, in what they're hoping for, and again, in not trying to take anything away from anybody that they don't have to, what they're really trying to do with it is they're trying to say, hey, if we can do it and we can do it safely and we can do all the things that we can do to have it, then we're going to have it. And if they have to change it or alter it, they're actually even considering it. I know that Dr. Conti and I were actually talking about, because actually we have a great luxury that Dr. Conti sits on the wrestling committee for the MIAA.
Cool.
Well, again, he was a tremendous athlete growing up, and he was a wrestler at Brown University. So, but again, he's so vested in it. Again, that's where the great part is that he understands how much it means, because he gritted out one of the craziest sports there is. So again, I think he wants to give, and that was a big part of we had that conversation. People got caught up in I only got to play 10 games and I should have been able to play 12. Well, there's a real possibility that two of the best athletes in our school right now, two kids going to Division I college to go to wrestle at Edinburgh University. The Soda brothers are both going to play, Division I college athletics in wrestling.
Wow.
And two of our most, our most decorated athletes, if you will, may not have a chance to compete their senior year. And both of them, again, New England and state champions last year, once in a lifetime opportunities for these two. And, we're arguing about a kid not getting to play 12 games where their entire season may not happen at all. And they're never going to get a chance to have that opportunity and their senior year to defend two of the hardest titles in the world.
My heart is just breaking when you're telling me this. Yeah.
But it puts things in perspective.
It does. It does.
People forget that, we as administrators, I'm governing, 30 sports, and I'm trying to treat them all with the most, respect and opportunities that we can give. And when you get hyper focused on your one, hockey team or your one basketball team, you forget that, there's somebody else, down the road that's not even having a chance to get their opportunity at all. So you're trying to put everything in perspective,
So, wow. Okay. Well, we only have like another minute or two. So, thinking of everything, and we kind of touched upon this, but thinking about everything that you've had to experience over the last 12 months regarding sports, regarding COVID, regarding not knowing what tomorrow will bring, what is like the biggest takeaway that you see moving forward when we're no longer in this global pandemic?
Well, a couple of little things. I mean, obviously, I'm super proud of our community and our athletes because, again, we like to take it. We take for granted that everybody can just roll with the punches at times. But I think this proved the resiliency of our young people. I think that's we're doing it right now. This whole live stream versus virtual world that we live in. And again, it's funny. I was having, we were having a side conversation just, in something we were doing. And, I said that, and Dr. Conti actually said it. He said, if we had an opportunity to change education and change athletics, if somebody would have told us without being in a pandemic that we had an entire year to alter education, people would have jumped at the opportunity to have a chance to revamp what we've become so accustomed to. And in this pandemic, we have actually changed the way we do education to a point, and we have changed the way we do athletics, and we changed the way we communicate with people. And again, if it wasn't a pandemic, we would have thought it was an amazing opportunity to change the way we've done some business. And again, I understand that, but
it's the silver lining, and
and I think I think the biggest piece, the live streaming and the relationship building that we've made has been amazing. I think some of the access that we've been able to dole out has been phenomenal. Again, and the fact that, look at the people around us that are willing to go out and wear their masks and stand in the cold and make sure that, again, I say this to BCAT, with all these guys and with Jen and Robert and everybody that's there, Chris being there today. Again, these guys will go out and stand in the rain holding a camera for 3 hours so that you can sit on your couch and watch your son or daughter, because not only was it important to us, but it was important enough that they made it important enough to go do it so you could see it. And I think that was, and again, the relationship between us and BCAT has always been like a football type of relationship and doing some other things here and there.
Okay.
But ultimately now, look at how much coverage we've had and what it's brought to both of us to be able to do that.
Exactly. Well,
so I appreciate all that.
We are out of time. So I want to thank you so much for, coming and giving up your Wednesday evening. Thankfully, it was between seasons, so hopefully you're not missing too many games. But I want to thank you for filling me in on the sports scene, and I hope everyone at home has enjoyed our conversation as much as I have and learned a lot. So anyway, hope everyone stays safe, stays warm, and I will see you around town. Good night.